offensively, what's going to be very curious to see is, you're going to have a couple new offensive coaches as well and defensive coaches. Forgot to mention that. A lot of them went to Purdue with Coach Walters. And so on offense, you're going to have the second year under Coach Lonnie Jr. Uh, the very first year with Coach Bielema, they had, a completely different offense. And then they bring in Coach Lonnie last year. So second year in the offense. So we're going to have to see if some of those guys just know it. But they have to replace some people as well, not just with the football coaches, but with players. We'll just start from the main player from last year. Well, I don't want to say main, but probably the guy that everybody knows is Chase Brown in the running back room. He is, off to the NFL draft. So that is going to be a huge thing to replace. But they have about 3 or 4 running backs that they can use. It's going to be taking reps, in my opinion, between Josh McCray and Reggie Love III. Josh McCray coming off. He was supposed to be. I'm not saying Chase Brown would not have put up the numbers he did last year if McCray was healthy. Because he looked great as a freshman. And then last year was supposed to be able to be that, that 1-2 punch. Chase Brown that could do everything. He can run people over. He can outrun people. He could do all those things. Josh McCray is the guy that could just run people over. He still has some speed, but it was maybe that 1-2 punch, especially when you got down to the red zone. If you had both of them in the game at the same time, put Chase Brown out into the slot, and you had Josh McCray in the backfield, that was going to be something to watch and really something to see. Then he gets hurt. Then you have Reggie Love III, who doesn't have a lot of reps. He's just a speedster type of guy. So now it's going to be those two. So it's going to be really to see, even in this game, you have some practices going on. How does Josh McCray bounce back from his injury? Is he in the spring game? Is he going to be running? And are we going to see mentally that he can handle being tackled? And so that's why a spring is very important, because it allows him to say, hey, this guy mentally just isn't ready, but I think he is. Reports and videos you've seen, he's running hard, he's cutting hard. And so I think he'll be fine. And this will allow him to feel better. Okay, hey, look, I got tackled. Nothing bad happened. And so getting tackled, nothing bad happening to my body. I didn't get hurt. And so that will allow him to get some confidence. And then as a redshirt freshman, Jordan Anderson is reported to be a very fast guy, very good runner. So you have the possibility of having 2 or 3 running backs a game take the load off to try to replace the production of a Chase Brown. And so that running back room looks pretty good for the Illinois. It's just we're going to have to figure out who's going to take most of the reps, because you don't want to replace every single play. You don't need somebody new. But I think you're not going to see the heavy carry load that you saw with Chase Brown. Chase Brown could carry the ball every single play. We're not going to see that. Josh McCray is not going to carry the ball every single play. Reggie Love III is not going to carry the ball every single play. So you're going to see alternating running backs in that room for the offense. And so for the spring game, what to expect is we're going to see all those guys get a lot of reps, and we're going to be able to see what kind of moves do they have. Are they able to put their head down? Are they going to be able to catch passes? And so that's going to be really good, cool to see. And that's cool to talk about, later on in the summer, talking about the running back room there. Wide receivers, we still have a lot of the same guys, which is awesome to see. Casey Washington's still around, Pat Bryant around, Isaiah Williams, that's going to be the guy. Don't expect to see Isaiah Williams play much in this scrimmage, because we already know if certain guys, we already know what they bring to the table. You'll see them for the first series, maybe the second, if there's a couple plays they want to call and see, just to have some fun too. It's fun to play in a scrimmage and try to be in that game environment. But those guys, you're not going to see much of. You're going to see their backups, Ian Poog, Sean Miller, Hank Beatty, those type of wide receivers. Ashton Hollins is another player you're going to see. Kiari Wilcher is a freshman. Those are the guys that you're going to see. We know what the first guys bring to the table. They have to keep taking those steps forward to get better as well. So you're going to see those guys for the first. Isaiah Williams, you won't see past the first series. Casey Washington, maybe. Pat Bryant, maybe. You're going to see those guys. But that wide receiver room has to continue to grow and get better. That was one of the problems last year at the very beginning of the year, I thought, were people could talk about the wide receivers, but as the year went on, they got a lot better. The quarterback play was great last year. And so the receiving room, they have to continue to get better and continue to grow. So you're going to see those guys. So things to expect from that are the same names as last year, but we're going to see how are they running the routes? Are they getting the ball to them? How are they catching the ball? There's going to be some bubble screens like last year. How are they blocking them? So those type of things. The next room we're going to have is the offensive line group. And that's a curious one to watch. And that's one that I would be watching for because, the first year you saw a lot of like zone type of play. And then this year you still saw some zone, a little bit of wide zone, but there was counter, at least- especially in that Mississippi State game. There was a lot of counter. We had a lot of pin and pull. And it's the third year with Coach Miller, but it's the third year with Coach Bart Miller. And talking to him last spring, and hopefully to talk to him again after they're done with their spring scrimmage. Hopefully I can try to talk to him again. um, Third year with him. How is he molding this offensive line room? Are they starting to pick up on what he wants to do? And each year they kind of adapt to what they have. But the big name is Alex, but they call him Big P or Pisowski. I keep saying his name wrong. I'm Polish and I say his last name wrong, but he he started so many games. He was a big anchor for the offensive line group. Him going into the draft. And so trying to replace him, trying to replace Alex, Phil Strom, then you have Michael Marchowski. And so it's just going to be curious to see how some of these guys, play. But you have Josh Kreutz, Olin Kreutz's son. He is a redshirt sophomore. He's going to be put into that guard position or the center position, excuse me. And so that's going to be fun to try to see him play in a game type environment. You have Chrysler at the right guard position. I just want to see how he continues to grow and play. And so this offensive line group, just to see these new guys be put in, how do they mold? How does tackle position look? How's the communication between all of them? You're not going to see their entire run game, but I'm going to be curious to see what type of run game they have because each year they have similar ones, but it's changed a little bit towards what offense they're doing, and it's changed towards what they're able to do. And so being an offensive lineman myself, that's a big one that I'm going to watch. And then you no longer have Luke Ford. He was having a hard time staying healthy, but you have Tip Ryman. He's a redshirt junior as your tight end group. Redshirt sophomore transfer Tanner Arkin is going to be here as well. So to see these tight ends, Heron Boyer, redshirt freshman, how are they going to utilize tight ends in the blocking game? How are they going to utilize in the pass game as well? And I know maybe it sounds like I put a lot of stock into the spring game, but I think the way you hear Coach Bielema talk and these coaches, you're not gonna see the entire playbook open up, but you're gonna see um, basic plays for these guys and basic plays that we're gonna be able to see. And then obviously everybody talks about the quarterback. We no longer have Tommy DeVito. The NCAA did not allow him to have another year to play, which I thought was disappointing. And I thought it was poor leadership and a poor decision because you allow other guys to play 4 colleges in 4 years. You allow them to do kind of whatever they want. And then when Illinois wants to with Tommy DeVito to have one more year, you say no. So they don't really care about players and all that stuff. But, Illinois had to go out and try to replace them. So in the quarterback room, you have redshirt freshman Donovan Leary, redshirt senior transfer John Paddock, and then from Ole Miss, everybody's talking about is Luke Altmaier. He's a redshirt sophomore transfer from Ole Miss. People are speculating that he's going to be the starter. Now, people put a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks in these spring games. You saw what happened with Archie Manning, and people talk about how bad he is, which we'll maybe talk about that in a whole other episode. But he did not look good in his spring game at all. So does that mean he's not going to be the starter? Maybe, but these are reps that you have to take advantage of, especially in this game like situation. And so people are going to put a lot of eyeballs on the quarterback position because we knew what Tommy DeVito brought after the year. And if he was still here, we would know. How is Luke Altmaier going to show us what he's capable of doing? He's projected to be the starter. Um, Luke Altmaier, and because Tommy DeVito, he had a lot more stats to bring. When you look at Luke Altmaier, when he was at Ole Miss, now he got in as a freshman. He played in 5 games as a backup quarterback. He completed 54.1% of his passes for 192 yards and 1 touchdown in his freshman season at Ole Miss. He started his first college debut was in the second quarter against Louisville. He went 5 for 5 for passing for 18 yards against number 18 Auburn. He completed 5 of 28 passes for 174 yards, which is most of his 192 yards there as a freshman. And he had his first career touchdown pass against Baylor on January 1st, 2022, filling in for Matt Corral, who was injured. Then his sophomore year, he played in 4 games with 1 star as quarterback. He completed 8 of 17 passes for the season, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season. He had a one rushing touchdown. He made his first career start at quarterback versus Central Arkansas September 10th, 2022. He finished 6 of 13 passing for 90 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 1 touchdown run. Now his grades speak for themselves. His first year, he was on the 2021 Spring Chancellor's Honor Roll. Then 2022, he's at the Fall Athletic Director's Honor Roll as well. And then now as a sophomore, redshirt sophomore, he is now um, with Illinois. And so with not a lot of now those numbers and what he was doing is not bad, you know, but with Tommy DeVito, he had way more starts, way more experience. So it's gonna be curious to see how he comes in and looks. Now the videos and when you watch him play, he made some freshman mistakes when you saw him against Baylor and everything else. But to play that way versus ranked teams and those defenses, I think he's going to bring a lot to the table. But this is the one that people are really going to look at in the spring game. How is he moving with the pocket? How is he understanding the offense? How is he going to get the ball to these guys? What's his throwing mechanics going to look like? Tommy DeVito brought in this leadership as well. And so, how is he going to lead the huddle? How is he going to lead these guys? And so, again, you can't put that full stock into the spring because he's been there only for the spring. He's going to have all summer. He's going to have fall camp. But it's going to be curious to see how does he understand the offense, his throwing mechanics, throwing them the ball now. Does he have to complete every single pass? No. Um, can he check at the line? Is that going to be something else they're going to allow them to do in the spring game?